So this presentation introduces a resource I've cultivated for youth in counseling, which is really looking at what I'll call life stage development questions. So these questions, which I've either generated or sourced, are designed to support developmental inquiry across the lifespan. You can use them to guide assessment, deepen clinical understanding, or structure reflective conversations. They're not diagnostic tools, but really just springboards for narrative exploration, insight, and meaning making. So obviously, you wouldn't pose this to someone who is of an early childhood age, but if you want to get at some of those foundational experiences, particularly issues around safety, separation, and sensory memories, you could ask clients things like who was living in your home when you were between 3 and 6, or where did you feel most safe and most unsafe? So we also look at autonomy and the environment. So you might think about, were there moments of independence, places you love to explore? I may include questions about health. So were you often unwell? Did illness affect your emotional world? Really just depends. And I encourage exploration of early joy, bias in the home, and any strong recollections from preschool or kindergarten. These memories often surface unexpectedly and can carry emotional weight across the lifespan. Middle childhood questions shift toward the social sphere. So here I ask about family dynamics and role modeling. So, how did your parents relate to extended family? What was their relationship like with each other, and how did that shape your own connections? I also ask about community identities. So, how did your parents relate to your cultural national identity? What values or interests were emphasized at home? So, this is the age when children begin to internalize social positioning, belonging, and difference. So, I think these questions help us understand the early construction of identity and context. The questions I developed for adolescents explore identity, values, and social experimentation. So, who inspired you during these years? What groups or subcultures did you identify with? I also invite clients to reflect on formative tensions. When did you have to take a stand? When did your values get tested? And we look at intimacy, risk, and learning. So, what were your early romantic or sexual experiences? How did you relate to substances, rules, or authority? And finally, I may ask about emerging purpose. So, what interested you deeply in high school? What direction did you take after graduation and why? These years are rich in both rupture and revelation. So these questions explore how young adults begin to differentiate. What major decisions did you make in your 20s? How did you make them? Were any made impulsively or under pressure? I also ask, or I might also ask, in what ways were you becoming more independent from your family system? This is a time of significant relational and professional shaping. So, what jobs did you hold? Who mentored or influenced you? Did your sense of lifestyle or values shift during this time? And these questions help surface where autonomy took root and where it may still be in formation. So, this stage tends to mark a transition into longer term commitments and emerging self evaluation. I may ask, did your dreams change during this time? Did your physical body shift, and how did that affect your sense of self? We explore fulfillment and disillusionment with questions like what gave you satisfaction and what drained you. And we could also turn toward relationships. How did your intimate or peer relationships evolve during this period, or different kinds of challenges beginning to emerge? This stage often brings early glimpses of midlife questioning. By this stage, clients may be negotiating between stability and longing for change. I may ask, what feels stable in your life right now? What decisions from the past do you still feel good about? I might also ask about internal growth. How do you handle situations differently now? Are there parts of your life you're ready to revisit or reevaluate? And I may want to include a question about self-confidence, something like where do you feel most secure in yourself and where do you still hesitate? So this is a time of evolving identity. Clients may begin to notice parts of themselves resurfacing that were once dormant. So that's my focus here. So this phase often initiates deeper inner work. I may ask, is there something you've been ignoring that now calls for your attention? Or what makes you feel most alive or most shut down? Questions around values and renewal come to the forefront. So have your ambitions or ideals shifted? Are there people or parts of yourself you need to forgive? These years can bring a hunger to reclaim time, energy, and identity that's been deferred. So the questions are intended to support honest reflection and possible reinvention. This stage invites clients to consider the meaning they're making from their accumulated experiences. What are you learning as you reassess long-term relationships? Can you acknowledge misunderstandings or express gratitude for lessons learned? We might ask about purpose. So, what are your essential values right now? What still feels worth striving for? And we could assess adaptation. So, what changes are unfolding and how are you adjusting to them? These questions are often, I would say, they often open doors to spacious sort of reflection and conscious realignment. Okay, so here we can begin to lean into legacy. I might ask, what choices do you want to make now? Where do you feel confident? And what support would help deepen that confidence? Clients often connect back to long held ideals. So maybe something like what still excites or motivates you? How do you serve those ideals now? And we look at aging, right? So, what do you notice about your relationship to your body and your minds? Are you becoming more rigid or more expansive? Um, these questions are about perspective, how the self is evolving, and what still feels possible. I will say for the prior slide and for this slide that I've had a lot of women ask me, like literally ask me to create groups that have to do with menopause or perimenopause. So um, even though I'm talking about the body here in this slide, I think we can go back because I think that's a really crucial question for a lot of people is they're seeing a lot of these changes and they're happening on a lot of different levels and they're trying to make sense of it and for themselves they're really coming to terms with what that means in terms of their identity. There's a lot in that, and I could actually just maybe create a whole separate PowerPoint on that. Um, okay, so in this final stage, the questions focus on things around legacy, grief, and fulfillment. And how do you feel about being the sage? Do you carry a sense of contentment, or is there unresolved bitterness? I might ask clients to name gratitude and to acknowledge losses. So, what's changed in the last 5 years? What challenges remain? I might close with a question about meaning. What would you like others to remember about you? Or is there a phrase, prayer, or teaching that shaped your life? These reflections honor the fullness of lived experience while also holding space for continued growth, even in later years. And 63 is still very young. There's a whole bunch more years coming that I'll talk about in a separate PowerPoint. So basically, I created these questions as a flexible resource, not a script. And here are just a few guidelines for use. First, of course, start with rapport. Don't jump into the most personal questions right away. Let the relationship guide the pace. Second, hold the developmental arc. Listen for threads across life stages. A childhood pattern may echo into adulthood in surprising ways. And third, I'm going to suggest that you aim for integration. So you want to help clients connect past experiences with present meaning. Ask not just what happens, but how it's still living in them today. And these questions, I think, can guide narrative therapy, deepen case formulation, and offer structure to life review. Most importantly, they help us honor the uniqueness of each client's story. So I hope you find this useful.